Broadcasting from the Cottage Studio, this is the movie review, and as always, I'm your host, Ho Ho. So how y'all's doing? I hope you're doing good. I really do. So yesterday, we celebrated my favorite holiday. Oh yeah, even better than Halloween, really. And the reason is because Friday the 13th is a holiday that can happen more than just once a year. In fact, this year, Friday the 13th happens not once, but twice. That's right, not just in January, but Friday the 13th will also come around again in October. Are you kidding me? My two most favorite holidays in the same month? That is absolutely amazing, and I am so excited. We're probably going to be doing something special come Friday the 13th in October. And of course, just like Halloween, just like Christmas, there are just certain movies that you got to watch. I mean, there is. Halloween has, obviously, Halloween. Christmas has Die Hard, among others. But Friday the 13th, of course, has Friday the 13th with the most awesome Jason Vorhees. But you know what? There's still some interesting going on because Friday the 13th, like all great horror movies and, just things of that nature, to every lie, there's 20% truth. Just keep that in mind. For every lie, there's 20% proof. And with Friday the 13th, there's a lot of legend surrounding the origin of Friday the 13th. And well, let's just say this is actually based in Illinois, which is where I myself live. But yeah, based in Illinois, and the legend is that at Camp Crystal Lake, which is somewhere in northwestern, north central Illinois, somewhere between Chicago and Rockford, if I'm not mistaken, there was a kid who did drown in Camp Crystal Lake. He was at, a camp and drowned. But his body was never discovered. They had divers that they sent in after the fact and what have you. I don't know as if they actually dredged the lake or not. I don't remember on that one. I don't think they did, but they did search for the body, and they was unable to find him. The investigation was basically it was chalked up as an unfortunate accident. Nothing was really done. And the camp lived on. It continued to stay open, and, nothing really happened. No punishment was dealt out. And so obviously, the mother of the kid that had drowned was unhappy with the investigation. And considering no real answers came out to the investigation, she went to Camp Crystal Lake to do her own investigation. I believe she went in and got hired on as a cook. And, I don't know exactly the time frame between when her son died, which I have no idea what his actual name was. Jason Vorhees is the name in the movie, but I have no idea what his actual name was. And, like I said, I don't know how much time actually passed between his death and her getting hired. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know if it was, I highly doubt it would be like within the first couple of years, but I'm sure it would have been, 5 to 10, probably more closer to 5, just because, she's more able to get answers from people who were actually there. So I guess she, did her own investigation, confronted a couple people, and were really, she was angered by what she ended up finding out, which is the reason why she ended up, through, a moment of rage and severe, just sorrow, desperation, what have you, ended up lashing out and killing one or two initially camp counselors. I don't remember exactly how many. I know there was one there, obviously. I think there might have been two, but I don't completely remember. Legend has it. Legend has it. And she kind of continued the killing spree. I don't remember exactly how many people she killed. I think there was 5 camp counselors that were involved, or at least that she ended up killing. Now, unlike the movies, she wasn't brought to her end by another camp counselor. She was actually caught after the fact. I don't remember exactly how that went down, but she was caught after the fact and served, I don't know, I think like 15 years in prison before she finally died in prison. But, she didn't reach her end like the movies would have you believe. Now, again, this is as legend has it. And I was unfortunately unable. Is that a double negative? Does that mean it's a positive? I have no idea. Grammar. Who can keep track? But I wasn't actually able to, verify a lot of this. Or maybe it's because I'm in, Illinois, the state where it happened. And, I don't know. But I wasn't able to find anything and actually, confirm any of this. That's why I say as legend has it. Okay. The legend around here. And you know how legends are. I mean, I know there's a legend in my own hometown of things that are here that you can't find anything about it online. I mean, you got to dig deep into, city records to find references of any of it, and I mean, you got to do some digging, in more ways than one. You got to do some digging to find out some of this stuff. So, I don't really consider not being able to find information about it online as an end all that it didn't happen. Again, as legend has it. I don't know if it's true, but either way you look at it, it makes for a great story. Now, here's a couple things we're going to talk about, and that is the movies to watch in the Friday the 13th franchise that you really should watch. I mean, if you are, of course, a horror fan, as you all know that I am. Horror movies, thrillers, slashers, they're just... I love the genre. I really do. I always have. And of course, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge will always be, it was my first love. It really was. But Friday the 13th is right up in there with quite a few of them, actually. But the question is, what movies do you watch on Friday the 13th? Because there's so many options, with so many movies. And look, not all of them are good. I know this. I'm not even going to pretend that every one of them are amazing. And really, if you have a question on which ones to watch, network TV actually does a pretty good job as far as playing the better ones. They really do. They really do. So let's start off with number 1. Obviously, if we're going to go into the Friday the 13th franchise, you got to start at the beginning. And what better place to start than the original Friday the 13th, which was produced in 1980. That's right. Now, originally, this was something that was, more or less made possible from, Halloween franchise being started in 1978. That's where they kind of just, went, got into this and really started doing it. It was with the how good Halloween did in theaters and afterwards. And they were like, okay, hey, you know what? Maybe there is a market for this. But the creators of Friday the 13th wanted to do it just a little bit different. They wanted to have something that was truly scary. They wanted to keep their audience on the edge of their seats, but they also wanted to make them laugh. And that is really prominent, especially whenever you look at some of the movies that happened later. It wasn't just a slasher. It wasn't just a horror. It wasn't just suspense. It was also some comedy, and there was some amazing comedy to be found in Friday the 13th. But let's get back to the original. 1980. Now, this one was kind of unique because the killer, Jason Vorhees, wasn't the actual killer in this one. It was his mom that was, avenging the death of her son. She was the killer. Good episode, good movie. It really was. It kind of kept you guessing because they kind of led you to believe that the killer was Jason, even though it wasn't. So excellent film. I love how they did it. It was a good one. It really was. Now, the next one to watch in here, I would say would be part 3. You can jump right over part 2. It wasn't bad, but it was kind of a, who cares? In the greater scheme of things, it's kind of a who cares. I'm not saying don't watch it, but I don't put it on my list. And here's one of the things too. All right, I'm not basing anything on this list as far as, with reviews, whether it be Rotten Tomatoes, whether it be, critic reviews. I'm not basing any of this on that. This is my own personal feelings on the Friday the 13th franchise, and I have seen every one of them. And as a fan, I don't want to say that makes me uniquely qualified, but, hey, I am a fan. Come on. I've seen them all. Just absolutely. So the next one to watch on my list is Friday the 13th, Part 3. Now, here's the thing. I think not only was Friday the 13th, Part 3 the introduction of the iconic, the legendary hockey mask, I think it may have also been the introduction of the machete as well. Jason Voorhees' weapon of choice. Freddy Krueger's got the claws. He's got the knife. Michael Myers has the knife. Jason Voorhees, Friday the 13th, he has the machete. Oh yeah, and hey, in the woods, a machete. It's kind of fitting, you know what I mean? So I know this was the introduction of the iconic hockey mask, but if I'm not mistaken, it was also the introduction of the machete. Jason Voorhees' weapon of choice. That one too was a good episode. I liked it. It was really good. It was really good. Now, the next one, let's see, Friday the 13th, Part 4, the final chapter. This one, not overly bad. I would almost say you can just jump right over this one if it wasn't for the fact that it introduces Tommy Jarvis. It introduces him, and he's a guy who comes back in not just another Jason Voorhees Friday the 13th movie, but in 2. The Tommy Jarvis actually comes up in 3 different Jason Voorhees Friday the 13th movies. Kind of the main antagonist in the entire series. The one character, not played by the same individual, but the one character that comes up more than once. And in which case, for that reason, I would almost say go ahead and watch it. I would almost say go ahead and watch it. In which case, it's not that bad. Part 5, Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. I would almost kind of skip over this one. Okay, this one doesn't really line up completely with the rest of the storyline. We'll get more into that later, because at the end of Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, hence the title, A New Beginning, they kind of changed the bad guy from Jason Voorhees to Tommy Jarvis, because this is the second appearance that Tommy Jarvis has in the Friday the 13th franchise. So yeah, it's not a horrible one to watch, but come on. How they ended up doing it, it doesn't really fit. And they decided to go away from how they ended A New Beginning, because they thought that it kind of detracted a little bit from the storyline, which is definitely prominent on the next one. The 6th installment of Friday the 13th, Jason Lives. This is where, this is the one, and this is a definite, I recommend watching this one. It is good. I like it. It is great. But this one starts off with Tommy Jarvis exhuming the body of Jason Voorhees because he wants to make sure that Jason Voorhees cannot come back. He's wanting to cremate the body. He's wanting to just destroy it, make sure that he ain't coming back at all. And in the process of exhuming the body, a lightning strikes, shocks his heart, and brings Jason back to life. This one starts off really, really cool. It really does, because with some of the stuff that they end up doing with Jason Voorhees being in the ground. Some of the things in there you would absolutely expect from a rotting corpse. You know, he's got maggots crawling on him. He's got some decomp going on. I mean, the man does not look good. I'm just saying, dude, Jason does not look good, but boy, howdy, does he ever wake up in true form. Holy cow. It really was a good episode. And it ends with Tommy Jarvis drowning Jason Voorhees at the bottom of a lake. I don't remember what the lake was. I mean, it's got to be Camp Crystal Lake, but I don't remember. And then that brings us into the next one. Part 7, Friday the 13th, The New Blood. Now, this one is an absolute must-see. I don't care if all you see is Part 1, Part 3, and then Part 7. But this one is an absolute must-see because this one is, you know, this is one of those where they throw a lot more comedy into it, just different things of it. They throw a little mysticism into it, but not like the way that they did with Michael Myers and Halloween, and even with, Freddy Krueger with Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, they throw telekinesis into it because this is the one where he goes up against a telekinesis young lady that she ends up being the only one that can actually stop him. In fact, she's the one that actually raised him from the dead and brought him back to life towards the beginning of the episode. And she is the one who finally, well, let's just say, orchestrates his ending at the end of the film. Oh, yes, a really good one. You know, you got some stuff going on in here that Jason really has absolutely no idea how to deal with. It really was a good episode. I highly recommend that one. That is Part 7, The New Blood. And now we go to what, I think this one is actually my favorite of the Friday the 13th franchise. Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, because this is the one. This is the one where the comedy really comes into play. I mean, boy, howdy, there are so many just hilarious moments in this one. You know, you got some instances where, Jason Voorhees is coming off the boat. He looks at a billboard and it's his hockey mask that's looking back at him. And I mean, he's kind of panning and then bam, he sees it and his entire being stops for like 2-3 seconds, something like that. He doesn't just stop moving. He stops breathing. I mean, he just completely, like somebody hit the pause button on Jason Voorhees. It really was very, very comical to see that before he starts moving again. You have the scene where, and by the way, spoiler alert, but if you haven't seen these, I mean, come on. Why are you watching this? And why are you not going and watching any Friday the 13th movies? This is Saturday the 14th, but that's beside the point. Come on. Friday the 13th. You got to be watching some of these. So anyway, back to the movie. Part 8. This one, whenever he's in Manhattan, he's walking down the street. There's some people there that are, listening to music on a boombox set up on a couple milk crates, I think. I mean, not milk crates. I think they're wooden crates, but, set up on some wooden crates. And he, Jason Voorhees just goes right through them, just not skipping a beat, nothing, just bam, goes right through them, kicks a couple of them, and just things go flying everywhere. And these guys that are sitting there listening to the music, they're not happy about what Jason just did. They're starting to give him a little bit of give him some grief, talking to him, talking smack. What the heck are you doing, man? And Jason just turns around, doesn't say nothing. I mean, of course, Jason doesn't talk with, in the entire franchise whatsoever. Not once, not ever does he talk. And of course, he doesn't talk again. Instead, what he does is lifts his mask, lets them see what his face and what he looks like, and then puts his mask back down. Now, you as an audience don't see what they see. You don't have any clue what Jason looks like because, they don't really show it all that often. I mean, I know that in part 3 at the end, they show his face. You know, Jason takes his mask off and shows his face before he ends up cutting himself down off of the rope noose that he was hanging from. I don't know if any of the other ones, they end up showing his face. I don't believe they do in part 7. I'm almost positive they don't in part 7. I'm not sure about, 5 and 6, but I know part 3 he does. I don't know about 4, 5, 6, or even 7. I'm almost positive he doesn't show his face in 7. But in part 8, they also do show his face. But again, hold on. We're on the comedy parts of this one, all right? We're on the comedy parts, and I ain't even finished yet, okay? There's another part where, he kills one of the teachers by drowning him, which is kind of like, okay, yeah, you kind of see what he does to like his stepson, stepdaughter. I don't even remember, but it's like, okay, I can't blame Jason for doing what he did on this one. That's kind of justified, I mean, maybe he went a little extreme, but hey, you kind of understand the point that Jason's trying to make on that death scene. And it's like, well, okay, and then there's another scene. And this one is great. Boy, howdy, was this one great. Because this is a scene where you got the boxer. He's the, the sports guy. He's the jock in the movie, black guy. And he's not overly ripped though, but he's a boxer. And apparently he's pretty good at what he does. All right. And he's up on the rooftop and he's fighting Jason. He is going to town. He is waylaying on him. He's giving him his best combination shots. He's giving him a left, a right, to the body, to the head, just everything, man. He is going to town, and he, at the end of this, this fight scene, I mean, he is tired. All right. His knuckles are all busted open and bleeding and everything else. And he is worn out. He's at the point to where he just cannot throw another punch. He can't do it, And in his point of exhaustion, he looks at Jason Vorhees. He's just got his hands down. He's like, take your best shot. So Jason grabs a hold of the scruff to the neck of his clothes, the neck, draws his hand back, and then wham, right on his head, right in the face. Plow. And then you see the guy's head bouncing off a few different rooftops, bouncing off a couple different things, this, that, and the other, and then finally landing a hole-in-one in a dumpster. I laughed so hard on that one. That was absolutely hilarious. Holy crap. That was funny. That was funny. The next one is part 9. Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. Now look, this is kind of one of those, the first time I seen it, I was highly disappointed in this one. I really didn't like it. It was kind of ridiculous. And it really took me a couple times of watching it before I really started warming up to this one, because yes, it's weird. Boy, howdy, is it weird. And this one really brings the mysticism that you've seen in part 7 to a whole new level, and really adding a lot of mysticism into Jason and who he is, and they really follow the path of such movies like Halloween with the Curse of Michael Myers, with Freddy Krueger, and I forget which one that one was, where, Freddy Krueger's daughter gets involved in it. They really go that same type of storyline. I don't know why, it just seemed like the thing that they were doing. I don't know if the years line up. I have absolutely no idea. But either way, this one really has some weird, what the heck were they thinking? But alongside that, though, there was still some really, really funny moments in this movie. Holy cow, there were some really funny moments in this. I don't know as if I would put this one on as a must-watch episode, But I would also not put this on the absolutely skip either, because it has, it's got its redeeming qualities. I mean, it really does. It's got some redeeming qualities in this. I can't totally say just ignore this one, but I can't say that you absolutely need to watch this one. I mean, Jason Goes to Hell is kind of one of those, again, I mean, it was a what the heck were they thinking? But there was something that happened at the very end of Jason Goes to Hell. Now, here's the thing. Let me give you a little backstory on this. Friday the 13th started off as Paramount. Started off as a Paramount, movie franchise. Well, they sold the franchise to New Line Cinema, which just so happens to be the same production house that had Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy Krueger. And as you would not be surprised, at the end of Jason Goes to Hell, there's a scene where, the wind sweeps across the ground and reveals the mask of Jason Voorhees. And then out of the ground pops the hand with the glove and the claws of Freddy Krueger, grabs the mask and brings it down to hell. Kind of opening this sucker up right then and there for a Freddy versus Jason showdown. Something that ever since New Line Cinema got Friday the 13th and the the rights to Jason Voorhees, the fan base has been wanting and crying for, and holy crap, now we're going to get it. Absolutely. The audience couldn't have been more happy and anxious to see the next Friday the 13th movie. And then we got it. I mean, it took them a while, because the final Friday, Jason Goes to Hell, came out in 1993, and part 10, Jason X, came out in 2001. But there's a problem. This was another one of the what the heck were they thinking? Because instead of actually doing what they telegraphed they were going to do at the end of Jason Goes to Hell, they didn't do that. They scrapped that project for whatever reason, I don't know. But they scrapped the project, not only just making us wait 8 years for this stinking thing, but they scrapped the project and decided to go a different direction. And that's how we got Jason X. Now, this one was the one of, part 8 was Jason Takes Manhattan. Part 9, Jason Goes to Hell. Part 10 is Jason X, Jason Goes to Space. That's what this one was. That's why it was, what the heck were they thinking? I mean, they were sitting on gold. How they ended it in part 8 with Jason Takes Manhattan. They had gold. Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, putting them together. They had gold that they were sitting on, and they ignored it. What were they thinking? Now, here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing, though. This one still has some really good quality. And again, I can't say don't watch this one. I mean, I would almost put this on the absolutely watch this one, but for different reasons, but this one is still a really good, a really good part of the franchise. I liked it, even though it was like, what? I mean, really? What? You make us wait 8 years and you don't even give us Freddy versus Jason. What the heck are you guys thinking? But it was still a really good, really good addition to the franchise. It really was, for different reasons. Some things happen in this one. Now, here's the thing about Jason X. And a lot of the magic didn't just happen from the writers or the director. Some of the movie magic happened because of the stuntman / actor who played Jason Vorhees. His name was Kane Hodder, or Kane Hodder. I'm not exactly sure which it is. But he made his first appearance in the Friday the 13th franchise in part 7, The New Blood. He played it in part 8, part 9, and then now part 10. He was not in part 11, which was the last of the main Friday the 13th franchise, the last episode of the Friday the 13th franchise. but he played it in 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now, here's the cool thing about, having the same guy play Jason Voorhees multiple times, because Kane Hodder, or Hodder, however you pronounce his name, let's just call him Kane, because Kane, there was one time in particular, and it was in the cargo hold, where how the writers chose to have Jason kill, one of these military guys that were looking to kill him. Kane actually, gave his input. He goes, no. That is not how Jason Voorhees would kill this guy. Not in this type of situation. He would do it like this and wrapped his arms around him and then drug him back a little bit to kind of demonstrate to the guy how he would kill this military guy that was after Jason Voorhees to do the same thing to him. And the guy was like, oh, I guess it terrified him. Kane Hodder is no small guy, wrapped his arms around you and squeezed just a little bit and then draws him back. And he's like, yeah, that works. So, it was awesome to hear that Kane, was so comfortable with his role, because, at this time, 7, 8, 9, this is the fourth time he, played Jason Voorhees to where he felt comfortable enough in who the character, who he was portraying, that he began to be able to think like him, which is something that's pretty awesome in the movie industry whenever you have that. It takes something away from the character whenever you are changing, even in this type of case where, the person that they are portraying isn't a person, but is a mask. Let's just face it. He's a faceless killer. He wears a mask all the time. He's a faceless killer. Kind of like Michael Myers. He's a faceless killer. It doesn't necessarily matter who's behind the mask. What matters is the mask. But it was awesome in this instance to see somebody play the character enough to where he could, put himself in the shoes of Jason Voorhees. And no. That's not how Jason would kill him. This is how he would kill him. I thought that was just absolutely amazing. I thought it was so awesome. Really, really cool. It spoke loads to, the character, how well he did. And, that's one of the things, there's, of my favorite episodes, part 7 being one of them. That's the, the telekinetic lady. Part 8 is obviously, part 9 is kind of but part 10, yes. 4 of my, my favorite Jason Voorhees movies, or at least, 3 of my favorites in there, the same actor / stuntman is playing Jason Voorhees. That's just kind of cool to me. I think that was pretty awesome. Moving on to the next one. Freddy versus Jason, coming out in 2003. This is the one where they finally did a Freddy versus Jason. Finally, something that they were telegraphing from back in 1993. Finally, they come out with it in 2003. Just, holy crap. 10 years later, that's how long it took them to do this. 93 to 2003, it took them 10 years to finally do the Freddy vs. Jason movie, the one the fans have been waiting on for such a long time. Holy cow. And this one was pretty stinking awesome. But it was also extremely disappointing. Now, granted, okay, this one, Kane Hodder doesn't reprise the role of Jason Voorhees. I don't know why. I don't know if this was a choice that was done by Kane. I don't know if this was a choice that was done by New Line Cinema or the director or anybody in casting. I have absolutely no idea. I've not read up on it, but I'm not sure why the decision was made, but he didn't reprise the role. However, we did have Freddy Krueger being played by Robert Englund, which is absolutely amazing. Now, here's the thing, though, too. This one was very much of a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. I mean, yes, it was Freddy versus Jason, but they did this in the Nightmare on Elm Street form. Okay, this was done on Elm Street. In fact, how this ended up playing out in the movie, again, spoiler alert, Freddy Krueger, he went into Jason's dreams to kind of, poke him and prod him into coming back to life in order to bring fear back to Elm Street and, increase people's fear, increase his power. And then afterwards, there was a showdown. Now, the movie ends with Freddy walking out of Camp Crystal Lake with Jason walking out of Camp Crystal Lake holding in the palm of his hand the head of Freddy Krueger. That's how the movie ends, basically telling you that there's going to be a part two. Not only that there's going to be a part two, but this one is going to be unlike Freddy vs. Jason being a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. This one is going to be a Friday the 13th movie. Very, very awesome. But unfortunately, Freddy vs. Jason Part 2 never actually ended up happening. Now, I don't know exactly why. I think this may have had something to do with Robert Englund leaving the role, because what we have next, and this actually took place in both franchise. This took place not only in Nightmare on Elm Street, but this took place in Friday the 13th as well. Because, you had a reprisal of the role. It was a remake that they came out. And part 12 of Friday the 13th that came out in 2009 wasn't a sequel. It was a remake. Now, granted, I like how they did it. They did a good job. A lot like how they did Nightmare on Elm Street. I liked the remake. I thought they did a really good job. It was neat to see them going back to the beginning with the, with sci-fi and CGI and special effects, and with all that. It was neat to see what they did with a bigger budget, with, better technology, just to see how they would end up doing it. And in my opinion, they really didn't, they didn't fail. They did a really good job. I liked how they did it. Now, Friday the 13th, that came out in 2009, the remake, was really a combination of part 1 and part 2. It really was, because they added stuff into it, just that the original one left out, because in this remake of the original Friday the 13th, it wasn't the mom that was the killer. It was, now, don't get me wrong, the mom was in there. The mom was in there. But the killer was Jason Voorhees. Okay? Now, I don't know if this is a forecast of things to come. Because, they redid Friday the 13th. They, started anew with a remake on Nightmare on Elm Street. And Robert Englund no longer at the role. I don't know if that's the reason why there was never a Freddy vs. Jason 2. I mean, that would make sense to me, but I've not looked at the timeline. Didn't even think about it until just now. Maybe I'll put a post on that somewhere on social media sometime soon to come. I don't know, but there you have it. And with the remake of Friday the 13th, especially with them doing the same thing with Nightmare on Elm Street, I really am curious to see what they end up doing. What does the future hold for these two quintessential bad guys that New Line Cinema has? Are we going to get the continuation of Freddy versus Jason? Are we going to get a continuation of any of it? And right now, with Friday the 13th, the most recent one coming out in 2009, I don't know the answer to that question. I really don't. I haven't seen anything as far as them wanting to do, or any plans whatsoever of doing another Friday the 13th movie. In fact, let me see something actually, because now I got myself kind of curious. I do have the Wikipedia page pulled up. This got, all of the films and everything else. And I do know that if I scroll down a little bit, oh, wait, I got to include something. You can't talk about Friday the 13th without throwing a little bit of into there. Holy cow, you got to. Had to include that in here. That music is on the Wikipedia website, and had to throw that in there. But this screen here, it shows the, the worldwide, all that kind of good stuff, what they spent, what they played or what they made in the box office. And looking at this, again, this is on the Wikipedia page for the Friday the 13th franchise. If you look at the 12th title, Friday the 13th, that came out in 2009, that was, for those of you that don't remember, that's something different. That would be why. No. The 12th episode, I'm sorry, I was looking at two of them. I was looking at Freddy vs. Jason, which was a $30 million budget. And it made, that was only international, but it made a $116.6 million. So that's a definite increase in profit margin right there. Very, very nice. But Friday the 13th, the remake that came out in 2009, the one we're talking about, that one had a $19 million budget, and worldwide it made $92.67 million. So, it had a significant, profit margin. So that's not the reason why they abandoned the project. The money was definitely there. And because of how the whole thing was, obviously people were like, okay, let's continue with this. If it was, if it really didn't have those type of approvals, you wouldn't have had people coming and watching it. $92.67 million in 2009 isn't no little number, I'm telling you. I don't care how you slice it. That's a pretty good, especially when we take into consideration only $19 million spent. So, are we going to see another Friday the 13th? Are we going to see another Nightmare on Elm Street since they decided to redo the entire series? Or are they going to kind of, do what they did with Halloween, with kind of make a remake and then continue with the original storyline? Now, granted, this isn't this isn't a Rob Zombie type of a thing. I'm just throwing that out there. Who knows what they have in mind? I certainly don't. So, guys, that is all I got to you for this episode. Go out and watch another Friday the 13th. It's not too late. I know it's not Friday the 13th, but it's never too late to watch a Friday the 13th movie. So that is all I got for y'all. Y'all have yourself a great one, and I'll see you in the next one.